Well, good morning or good afternoon, beloved friends. It is 12:12 and time for awareness moments with Kyra. And I am, as always, privileged to be here on this Good Friday, on this day of at-one-ment. Many think of this as a time of atonement for sins, and yet this is a time where another perspective, we understand that Jesus was demonstrating the power and the level of Christ consciousness that he had come to through doing the inner work, through working through the layers of consciousness in himself, the places where the subconscious wants to take on identities and claim them as real. And he knew the only thing that was truly aligned at one-ment with the divine was the place where he was calling on that infinite source, where he was knowing himself as one with the Father, as that which he always was saying, that it is not I, but the Father within me that does the work. And whether we say Father, Mother, infinite essence, it is that divine awareness. And what happened for Jesus in this demonstration, and what is an invitation for each of us? He worked through the layers of thought and consciousness within himself to overcome the belief in separation. And on this day, when we talk about atonement in the unity perspective or the new thought perspective, we're going to speak of at-one-ment. At-one-ment is where he went when he went into that Garden of Gethsemane, when he went in and did his inner process it was representing the place where they pressed the olives there at the base of Mount of Olive. And it was where they took the oil and they found the juice in it. And what is it that happens in us when we find the juice of having our ego pressed out to where we are aligned with that one divine spirit, with that truth of our Christ consciousness? See, we each have places in us where we've bought into identities in the world, identities in our mind, for sure. We all think we're legends in our own mind, right? So as we instead begin to say, I'm willing to surrender myself into thy will, not mine, into the awareness that there is a greater will for our lives. Now, what's interesting with this demonstration that Christ represents is that he was doing something that was breaking through what is Charles Fillmore, our co-founder in Unity, would call the stratified consciousness, the stratified field that would keep us in the same thought emanations that have been going on for eons. And what he did was to break through those crystallized thoughts, that place to begin to soften and yield and open to something that is much more expanded, more omnidimensional, more available to us when we begin to soften and open to a higher awareness of what is it that is animating, I can't talk today, animating our being, that divine life that is within us. What is it that is bringing forth that at-one-ment in me where I'm willing to be out of the way and allow the Christ consciousness to take forward the forward thrust, that which is moving forward and being present in my life and in my world in every moment? Where am I at one with that infinite source? See, when he surrendered himself in that garden, and he took, we talked briefly about this, Peter and Andrew and John with him, because he wanted to have that faith and that strength and that love with him that he had relied on to get him through those times in his journey. We want the things that have brought us to where we are now to be that which is going to take us forward. And yet even those, they fell asleep during this time. They could not stay awake. That part of us that we've even glorified, which was still not the full Christ embodiment. See, Jesus was demonstrating breaking through this stratified consciousness, creating an opening for all of us to flow through in our own consciousness, to open the field to where we all can become at one with ourselves and our Christ consciousness. How powerful is that? It's I know many understand it as having died for our sins, and yet that says that we came in already sinful. And in the teachings that I profess, I don't believe that. I believe we're born a blessing. And I believe that what occurs in this process, and you get to choose your own beliefs. I don't decide for anyone. You decide for yourself. But for me, when I understand that he was the way shower and the teacher that was demonstrating what's possible for me as well. It is not that any of us are here to die for each other's sins. We are here to learn our own at-one-ment with the divine, to break through the place where we have relied on various wonderful gifts, but that when he received the illumination, the transfiguration, that he was transfigured from being the Jesus Christ to becoming Christ Jesus, to becoming that which was aware at a much higher level, that he was not someone that could animate himself. It was the divine that was always doing that. And he became willing in that powerful moment in Gethsemane, when he was willing to surrender that which he had known and been, to become that which was much greater for him and through him and as him. And in that, it was like giving way to the sense consciousness that wants to engage us in staying in just that, instead of spiritualizing and understanding the spiritual emphasis that is in all of life. As we walk through this and understand the messages of this day of Good Friday, we begin to see how he stayed true to his Christ awareness, to the awareness that was available to say yes to something greater, to take hold and to operate in, through, and as him. And if we say yes to that which wants to really bring forth the greater good, we may have to let go of things of the way that we've understood them, of our identifying ourselves and the world in separation. If we are to really only know that we are one, and we release the thoughts, the layers upon layers of thoughts that have kept us believing in this worldly identity in a self, then we break away from the self. And what comes shining through is the radiant light. Now, what's remarkable about the story of Christ, of what he did, was that he also demonstrated radiating that light through his body temple, of recognizing that it wasn't denying the body, it was embodying the body with the Christ consciousness, so that every cell becomes a cell of radiant light. Every aspect of him is infused with light, and he becomes a vessel to bring that light into the world. Now, did he still have the thought consciousness of the world that he had to work through? Yes. It's why he also understood something greater, that there was compassion for the human experience. He lived into it, and his compassion extended in forgiveness, in the ability and willingness to say, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. See, we don't know when we're caught in our own unconscious ways how always to bring awareness into this. And yet the great gift is that we have a demonstration. And number two is that we're able to then go back into a place where we become willing to let go and allow that divine light to guide us. To say, I'm willing to be guided, and let your will be what is my will. Let me get me out of the picture completely, because the truth is, in the Christ awareness, there is no me here. There's only the animation of the divine. And yet most of us are still very, very involved in being human, right? And we're learning to be spiritual humans, divine humans, to bring light into everything that we are. You know, Charles Fillmore had many teachings about this in Keep It True Lent and in the book Adam's Smashing Power of Mind. And in those, he talks about these radiating centers of light that we are. And when we bring them all into Christ awareness, then all of a sudden, all of us is on fire with that light, on fire with awareness. And we begin to see from an elevated perception. We begin to open to the oneness consciousness. And from that place, we see all of life as interconnected and vital and important to the whole. Nothing is diminished or put aside, but it is brought into a light of seeing it for truth that it has available inside of it, available to it. And we embody for ourselves that light of a willingness. We take the will that we've developed to be able to accomplish what we've accomplished in this world. And now the greatest gift we give is to surrender that will, to be willing. And if you aren't willing to fully surrender yet, to say, yes, I'm willing to see it all as spiritual life, all as God life, then begin by being willing to be willing. I'm willing to be willing. And if I'm willing to be willing, then the divine is getting the message to work through me and as me. And as we do that, we begin to move through this Good Friday. It's a Good Friday. Remember that it represents a higher awareness rising through the experiences to bring forth the greater demonstration of light and truth and Christ consciousness and our at one-ment with that all of creation. That means every part of us that has been conflicted gets brought in and nurtured and brought into the awareness that it is divine. It is divinely inspired, every aspect of us. And as we begin to know that and set that free, we begin to allow the Christ light to radiate through and change our body temple to a light temple. That is the message of this ascension time. That is the message of the awakening that is happening for us. And so as we find that those aspects of us that appear to be crucified, in these times in the world, we fight against the things that are happening out here, and yet we have to give up our fight and surrender in. And those parts of us that don't want to give up the fight, that have resistance, that have the ways we think it should be, are having to settle in and say, I'm willing to see it all as I would through Christ's eyes, as I would through the divine, as I would through any part of me that's in alignment with a higher awareness. Let ourselves be lifted in this time of ascension, in this time of surrender to our at one-ment with this divine source that wishes to express its greatest good through us. It may not always look like what we think in the moment of surrendering how we believe it should be. And yet, ultimately, it is bringing forth such a powerful, powerful transformation in us and in the world. And we feel that right now. We feel that in this Easter more than ever. This is a time when we're having to turn within. We don't have to, but we have a choice to turn within. We have a choice to experience from the place of the divine awareness. And when we do that, when we let go of our desire or need for it to be different than it is, then we flow and allow the flow of the divine to bring forth its greater light. Let the thunder strike. Let the lightning strike. Let the thunder roar. Let the experience of this day truly break through our places of resistance. Bring us to greater at one-ment. In that oneness, we find that all of life is sacred and worth reverence. And we are truly experiencing that in our time. Bring your awareness into the reverence of each moment, into the gratitude for the sacred experience of life and the sharing of life, and knowing that something magnificent is happening here, something beyond our ability to comprehend. We go into the great mystery in these days, and we come through the other side, arisen, set free, allowing ourselves to know that we are one. We are one with all of creation. It is my privilege to be with you all on this beautiful Good Friday day, to know that we are at one and that you already know these truths and are being set free and knowing and holding a higher truth of consciousness, radiating light. They say that Jesus' body was illuminated because he was so filled with that prayer consciousness, with that oneness consciousness. We've known people like that, or we've known moments like that for ourselves when we've touched in to that oneness and we are alive and alight with that glow of the divine consciousness. In that, these earthly experiences cannot touch the sacred reverence of life that is eternal within us. So join me in radiating that light today. Let yourself follow the path that was interwoven and broken free by Christ in being in Jesus, by breaking through that stratified, crystallized thought sphere. And let us set free the thoughts that are the light of the world. I am so grateful to be with you, and I wish you a blessed and wonderful day, and look forward to being back with you again tomorrow for our continuation on this awareness moments. God bless you, friends. Have a fabulous, fabulous day. I love you. Bye.